The rain had been falling all night over Manhattan, washing the city in silver streaks and reflections. Inside the old Bellevue Hospital, a nurse rushed through the neonatal corridor, her shoes clicking on the tiles. In her arms, she carried a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. No one knew who had left him there. No name, no documents, nothing but a note pinned to his chest. It was handwritten, shaky, almost desperate. When the time comes, the ring will tell the truth. Beneath the note lay a small silver ring, far too tiny for an adult, yet far too precious to be random. The nurse looked at it, puzzled, before placing it in a sealed envelope beside the infant's crib. They named him Lucas Reed. Years passed. Lucas grew up in Queens with his adoptive parents, Anna and Michael Reed, two kind, modest people who never hid the truth about his past. They told him he'd been left at a hospital and that the ring and note were the only clues about his origins. But Lucas had learned early to bury questions that had no answers. He built a life around what he could control: design, basketball, and the quiet rhythm of freelance work. Yet every birthday, when he looked in the mirror, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, still knew him better than he knew himself. On the morning of his 25th birthday, a small, unmarked envelope arrived at his apartment. There was no return address, just his name, written in black ink. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was the same silver ring, polished, shining, and another note. "It's time. Mott Street, number 184. Lucas froze. His heart pounded as he turned the ring in his hand. It was cold, but familiar, like a memory trying to come alive. He Googled the address, a small jewelry store in Chinatown. By the afternoon, curiosity had devoured hesitation. He took the subway downtown, the same route he used to take as a kid when his mom brought him to festivals. But this time, every step felt heavier, more deliberate, like walking toward a truth that might change everything. When he entered the shop, a bell rang softly above the door. The air smelled of metal and dust. Behind the counter stood an elderly man with gray hair pulled back in a low ponytail. Mr. Liang. His eyes, sharp and observant, lifted to meet Lucas's. "Can I help you?" he asked in accented English. Lucas placed the ring on the counter. "Do you recognize this?" The old man adjusted his glasses and leaned closer. His expression changed almost instantly. "Where did you get this?" It was left with me when I was a baby," Lucas said, hesitant. "Someone sent it back to me today, with your address." Mr. Liang stared at the ring for a long time, then whispered something in Mandarin before sighing deeply. "Yes," he said finally. "I remember this piece. There was another one just like it. A pair, actually. Ordered by a very young couple long ago. They came to my store in 1999. The boy couldn't stop smiling. The girl was nervous. They wanted something simple, something secret." Lucas's pulse raced. "Do you remember their names?" The old man shook his head slowly. "No names. But I remember the woman's eyes. Sad, but brave. They said the rings were a promise. Then, a few weeks later, someone came to cancel the order. Said the couple was gone." He handed Lucas a faded receipt with a faint number on it. "This was left behind. I kept it because I had a feeling the story wasn't over." Lucas took the paper, feeling the weight of decades pressing against his chest. He didn't yet understand what he was chasing: love, truth, or just the face of someone who once held him. But something in that tiny ring told him the time had come to stop running from the past. And what he'd uncover next would turn a forgotten hospital file into the biggest revelation of his life. What would you do if a single object from your past could reveal everything about who you really are? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next part of Lucas's journey. Lucas sat on a bench outside the jewelry store, the faded receipt trembling in his hands. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was a thread. And he could feel it pulling him toward something buried deep beneath layers of silence. He unfolded the slip again, tracing the faintly printed numbers with his thumb. C317, Port Authority Terminal. Scribbled underneath, almost invisible, was a date. March 5th, 2000. A locker number. By the time he reached the Port Authority bus terminal, the rush hour crowd had begun to thicken. Announcements echoed across the hall. Travelers hurried past with luggage and coffee cups, oblivious to the young man walking among them with a silver ring burning in his pocket. Lucas found locker C317 tucked in a corner near an old payphone. The metal was scratched, and the lock mechanism looked ancient. The receipt had a 4-digit code on the back, perhaps a combination? He tried it. Click. The door creaked open. Inside was a small, dust-covered box. His breath caught as he lifted it out. The label read, "Property of M.S." Lucas carried it to a nearby bench and slowly opened it. Inside were 2 things, a voice recorder and a folder sealed with medical tape. His hands shook as he pressed play. A woman's voice, soft and trembling, filled the headphones. "Lucas, if you ever find this, it means someone finally told you where to look. I don't know how much time I have left, but I need you to know, I never wanted to leave you. I did it to save your life." Lucas froze. The voice felt like a hug from a ghost. Warm, fragile, gone too soon. "They said you wouldn't survive if I kept you. They said our names had to disappear. But one day, you'll understand the truth. The ring was our promise, mine and your father's. If you ever find the other one, follow it." The recording clicked off. Lucas sat there for a long time, eyes blurred with tears. When he finally tore open the folder, he found copies of hospital records from Bellevue, birth certificate, adoption files, and a note signed by a social worker. "Child transferred at request of court." Attached to the file was a newspaper clipping, an old headline about the Valmont family, one of Westchester's wealthiest real estate dynasties. The photo showed a man and woman in tuxedos, smiling beneath crystal chandeliers. The name below read, "Arthur Valmont, CEO of Valmont Holdings." In the corner of the clipping, someone had written 2 words in pen, "He knows." Lucas's pulse quickened. Valmont. He didn't recognize the name, but something about it clawed at his memory. He remembered faint whispers from his adoptive parents about a donor who once tried to contact the agency about sealed records. Back in his apartment that night, Lucas laid everything on the table. The ring, the receipt, the folder. Then he noticed something else. On the inside of the ring's band, barely visible, were tiny engraved initials, LV plus MS, and a date, 02/1399. He ran the initials through a genealogy database, pairing them with the hospital records. Hours passed. At 3 a.m., his screen pinged with a new match, DNA relative found, 46% match. Relationship, half-sibling. Name, Emma S. Torres, 27 years old, Astoria, Queens. Lucas's heart stopped. A half-sister, 2 miles away. He hovered over the send message button for almost a full minute. Then he typed, "Hi, I think we might be related. My name's Lucas Reed. I was born in Bellevue Hospital in 2000. There's something I need to ask you about our family." He pressed send. Outside, the city hummed. Taxis, sirens, the low thunder of rain against windows. But inside that small apartment, the air felt electric. The ring gleamed under the lamplight, and Lucas couldn't help but whisper to himself, "Who are you, Mom?" The answer, he sensed, was already on its way. But what Emma would reveal next would make Lucas realize that the truth wasn't just about his birth. It was about a crime that someone had buried long ago. What would you do if a stranger suddenly claimed to be your sibling and could prove it? When Emma Torres finally agreed to meet, it was a gray Sunday afternoon at a cafe near Steinway Street. Lucas arrived early, restless, tapping the silver ring against his coffee cup as he rehearsed what to say. Every few seconds he glanced toward the door. Then he saw her, a woman in her late 20s, curly brown hair, cautious eyes that looked unsettlingly like his. She approached slowly, studying him as if she were staring at a reflection she didn't quite believe. "Lucas?" she asked. He nodded. "Emma?" They sat. For a moment, words failed them. Then quietly, she said, "I've been waiting for someone to contact me. I did the DNA test years ago, but no one ever reached out until you." Lucas leaned forward. "Do you know anything about your father?" She hesitated. "Not much. My mom said he left before I was born. She never talked about him. only that he was Colombian, that he used to study architecture in New York, and that something happened. Something bad. Lucas's heartbeat quickened. The woman's voice on the recorder echoed in his mind. I did it to save your life. He took a breath and showed her the ring. This was left with me when I was abandoned. The initials inside, LV and MS. I think MS might be my mother, but I don't know who LV is. Emma's eyes widened. Wait, LV. My mom's name was Marina Santos. Does that mean... Lucas nodded. It does. The silence between them grew heavy. Emma's hand trembled as she reached for the ring. So you're saying we have the same mother? Lucas exhaled. Half siblings, maybe. Or... He hesitated. Or the same parents. I'm not sure anymore. Emma swallowed hard. There's something else, she said. Last year I found old letters hidden in one of my mom's photo albums. They were addressed to someone named Louis Valmont. She never sent them. They were love letters, talking about how they had to keep their relationship secret because of his family. Lucas's heart nearly stopped. Valmont? Yes. And one of the letters mentioned Arthur. Emma continued. She said Arthur would never let them be together. Do you know who that is? Lucas reached into his bag and pulled out the newspaper clipping he had found in the locker. He slid it across the table. That's Arthur Valmont, head of Valmont Holdings. Emma's face went pale. Then Luis must be his son. The pieces started to fall into place painfully one by one. Marina Santos, their mother. Luis Valmont, their father. Arthur Valmont, the man who tore them apart. Lucas whispered. He forced them to separate. He made her abandon me. Emma looked around nervously. If that's true, we're talking about one of the richest men in the state. He could have hidden anything. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment in his head. The anal, the letters, the names. Finally, he opened the voice recorder again and listened closely, this time noticing a faint hum behind his mother's words, like traffic noise mixed with distant bells. He Googled Bell's Westchester Estate Church Tower. Dozens of results appeared, but one stood out. Valmont Manor, an estate known for its private chapel with bronze bells that rang every Sunday morning. By dawn, Lucas had made up his mind. He would go there. He rented a car and drove north through highways lined with autumn trees. The closer he got, the heavier the air felt, as if the truth itself weighed down the sky. Valmont Manor was surrounded by stone walls and iron gates. Through the bars, Lucas could see manicured gardens, a fountain, and a tall house of white marble. A guard stood near the gate. Lucas introduced himself under a fake name, said he was a journalist doing research on family foundations. The guard hesitated, then called someone on a radio. Minutes later, a man in a tailored suit approached, sharp features, cold smile. Can I help you? The man asked. Lucas stared at him, his pulse hammering. He'd seen that face before, in the newspaper photo. Mr. Valmont? Lucas asked. The man gave a thin, knowing smile. Yes, I'm Arthur Valmont. And you are? Lucas swallowed hard. Someone who's been looking for you for a very long time. Arthur's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. I see. Why don't we talk inside? Lucas didn't know it yet, but crossing those gates meant stepping into the lion's den. And the secrets inside would change everything he thought he knew about his parents. Would you have the courage to confront the person who destroyed your family's past? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The next part will reveal what really happened to Lucas's parents inside Valmont Manor. The inside of Valmont Manor felt more like a museum than a home. Chandeliers glittered above portraits of ancestors, their faces frozen in stern disapproval. Lucas followed Arthur Valmont down a long hallway, his footsteps echoing against marble floors. Arthur spoke calmly, his tone practiced, the kind of voice that had negotiated empires. So, you're doing a story about family legacies? Lucas hesitated. Something like that. Arthur smiled faintly. Family is complicated. The past tends to rot if left unburied. They entered a study lined with mahogany shelves and an old globe resting beside a decanter of whiskey. Arthur poured himself a glass. So tell me, young man, what exactly are you looking for? Lucas set the silver ring on the table. The truth. Arthur's hand froze. The glass clinked softly against the crystal decanter. That ring, he said slowly. Where did you get it? Lucas leaned forward. It was left with me at Bellevue Hospital, along with a note that said the ring would tell the truth. It belonged to Marina Santos. Arthur's jaw tightened. For the first time, the mask of control cracked. That name should never have resurfaced. Because you buried it, Lucas said, his voice trembling but firm. You forced her to abandon me. You sent her away. You destroyed everything she had with your son. Arthur's eyes darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. Lucas pulled a folder from his backpack. The letters, the hospital papers, the DNA report. I do now. Arthur exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the fireplace. Luis was my son. Brilliant, stubborn, and foolish enough to fall in love with a woman who didn't belong in our world, I warned him. Marina was trouble. She was pregnant, Lucas shot back. Arthur didn't flinch. Exactly. Do you have any idea what a scandal like that would have meant for this family at that time? The company, the press? Lucas's hands clenched. You cared more about headlines than a human life. Arthur turned to him, voice suddenly icy. I cared about survival. My son was 20. He didn't understand consequences. I did what I had to do to protect him. And the family name. Lucas's voice broke. You made my mother give me up. Arthur sighed, almost impatient. She agreed. She was terrified. I offered her money, safety. She vanished soon after. Luis never forgave me. He left the country, died years ago as far as I know. Lucas's breath hitched. He's alive, he said softly. Arthur blinked. What? I found him. He lives in New Jersey. For a moment, the silence between them was absolute. Then Arthur laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. So the ghosts really do come back. Lucas stood. You stole my life, Mr. Valmont. But I'm taking it back. Arthur's expression hardened again. And what exactly do you think you'll do? Tell the world? You have no proof that I forced her. It'll be your word against mine. Lucas's lips curved into a quiet, knowing smile. You're wrong. I have something you don't. Her voice. Arthur froze. Lucas reached into his pocket and placed the recorder on the desk. He pressed play. Marina's trembling voice filled the room. They said our names had to disappear. Arthur, if you ever hear this, know that I did it to save him. From you. Arthur's hand trembled for a fraction of a second before he slammed the stop button. You have no idea what you're doing, he hissed. You'll regret this. Lucas pocketed the recorder. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it as your son's son. He turned to leave, heart racing. But as he reached the door, Arthur said quietly, You think you've won something, but all you've done is open a vault that was sealed for a reason. Lucas stopped. What vault? Arthur smiled faintly. You'll find it soon enough. It's where the real truth sleeps. The words lingered like smoke as Lucas stepped out into the cold night. The rain had started again, gentle at first, then heavier, as if the city itself were trying to cleanse the sins of men like Arthur Valmont. When Lucas got back into his car, he texted Emma. He knows everything. There's something else. A vault. Minutes later, she replied, Then we're close. I think I know where it is. But what they would find inside that vault would not only confirm the truth, it would rewrite the very reason Lucas was abandoned 25 years ago. That night, Lucas barely slept. His mind spun with Arthur's last words. The vault. If Arthur Valmont had gone through such lengths to bury the truth, then whatever lay in that vault had to be more than money or documents. It was the heart of the secret. By morning, Emma sent him a text. Meet me at the old Valmont Bank branch. There's a private vault listed under LV 1999. I checked the archive. It still exists. When they arrived, the old Manhattan Bank looked deserted, its marble pillars cracked and gray. The clerk led them down a narrow staircase into the vault area, the air thick with dust and time. Lucas's hands shook as he entered the code engraved inside the ring. 021399. The lock clicked. The door opened with a groan. Inside was a single metal box. He lifted the lid, and there, wrapped in faded fabric, lay a small collection of items: 2 identical silver rings, a stack of letters tied with a red ribbon, and a photograph of a young couple, Marina Santos and Luis Valmont, smiling beneath the cherry blossoms at Central Park. Emma covered her mouth. They were really in love. Lucas unfolded one of the letters, written in his mother's delicate handwriting. "Luis, if our son ever finds this, tell him I wanted him to have a life free from fear. Tell him the ring was never about possession. It was about truth. The moment he wears it, our promise is complete." Tears welled in Lucas's eyes. All his life he had searched for belonging, and now the proof of love was right in his hands. Love that had been stolen from him before he could even understand it. Among the papers was one last envelope labeled, "For my father." Inside, a letter written by Luis Valmont, dated 2001, the year after Lucas's birth. "Father, I know what you did. I know you made Marina disappear. You told me she didn't love me, but I saw the hospital records. You forced her to give up our child. You destroyed 2 lives to protect your pride. I can't forgive you, but one day he will find me. And when he does, he'll know the truth. He is my legacy, not you." Lucas lowered the paper, his chest tightening. He finally understood. His parents hadn't abandoned him. They had been torn apart by power, fear, and lies. He turned to Emma. "He deserves to know everything. The world deserves to know." Together they took the documents and recordings to a lawyer, the same man who had once worked for Arthur Valmont. Racked with guilt, the lawyer confirmed everything and provided the missing link: financial transfers, falsified court orders, the hush money that had silenced the adoption case. The next week, the story hit the news. Headlines across New York read, "Real estate tycoon Arthur Valmont accused of covering up illegal adoption." The scandal shattered the empire. Arthur Valmont resigned, his name disgraced. But for Lucas, it wasn't about revenge. He finally met his father, Luis Valmont, now gray-haired but kind-eyed, living a quiet life in New Jersey. When their eyes met, no words were needed. Luis opened his arms, and Lucas stepped into them. 25 years of absence dissolved in one embrace. They sat together for hours, reading Marina's letters aloud. Luis cried when he saw the rings, the same rings he and Marina had ordered from Mr. Liang all those years ago. "She wanted you to have both," Luis said softly, "so that one day you'd know we never stopped loving you." Lucas slipped one ring onto his own finger and handed the other to his father. "Now it fits," he whispered. A few weeks later, Lucas returned to Bellevue Hospital, the place where everything began. Standing in front of the maternity wing, he placed a small box on the donation counter. Inside it, one of the silver rings and a copy of Marina's note. "When the time comes, the ring will tell the truth." He smiled. It already did. Outside, the city buzzed as always, the noise, the chaos, the endless rhythm of life. But for the first time, Lucas felt peace. The ring that once symbolized loss had become a circle of closure, of family, of truth finally restored. He looked up at the skyline and whispered to himself, "Home isn't where you're born. It's where you stop running." Do you believe blood or love defines a family? If Lucas's story moved you, leave a comment below, hit like, and subscribe for more emotional true life stories about love, loss, and redemption.